Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
Right, you're very welcome along to this week's edition of Friday Night Racing. Myself and Johnny Ward are with you every Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock on all of OTB's social channels, or you can also get us, of course, at 8 o'clock on Off the Ball on News Talk. Friday Night Racing is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie, or you can follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing, and the hashtag is every racing moment. For different reasons, neither myself or Johnny were at the pre-Irish Grand National Roadshow. Aisling O'Reilly was there and correctly tipped and backed the winner of the Irish Grand National, Lord Lariat, 40-1.
And I think met the jockey afterwards as well.
Well, she'd been down beforehand doing a piece about the previous year's winner's trainer, who had, Freewheeling Dylan coming home. Was it 100, 150 to 1?
150, yeah.
Well, there you go. And she was like, well, I'm just down. I like the vibes. I kind of heard good stuff about it. And lo and behold, Lord Lariat romped home. A pretty amazing story.
It is. Twice in a row is, what are the odds in that? Like, literally about 20,000 to 1 or something like that, like, at those odds.
Paddy O'Hanlon is with us. Paddy, good afternoon to you.
Well, lads, thanks for having me on.
What has the whirlwind been like since you won the Irish National on board Lord Lariat last week?
Bit of a blur now. It was Monday and now it's Friday. I'm sitting outside Kilbeggan here. So yeah, it's gone by fair quick, but no, it's been a fair roller coaster, but we've enjoyed it.
Take us to the bit before, the week before. When did you even have a sniff that you might have a chance of getting on Lord Lariat?
I suppose we went up to Fairy House, so we did a couple of weeks before with Freewheeling Dylan and Lord Larry for a promo there, for the festival. And Dermot said to me, he says, sure, come on up and we'll school him. And I said, if he gets into the national, great. If he doesn't, he says he'll get into the race straight after it. And he says, whatever you get in, he says, you'll ride it anyway. So I says, geez, no, that's great. I'm delighted. And it was just a matter of hopefully waiting if he'd get in, the situation with the ballot. And thank God he did. So,
okay, obviously Dermot McLaughlin, the trainer, had it in his mind that you were going to ride him from a bit before that. Was that news to you, or had you been hoping that? And did you know in advance? Like, what is that relationship with Dermot? Where did that start?
I suppose he'd be a neighbour. He'd be a friend of mine, basically. But I suppose I'd won on the horse in Punchestown on New Year's Eve, and they were kind of mapping him out then, looking towards the national, hoping that he would get in. And I got injured then at the Dublin Racing Festival in February, and I only got back then the last day of March in Nace, and I was hoping, I says, that hopefully I could get a ride in the race, hoping to ride Lord Lariat, obviously. And the boys, Pat, PJ, Dermot, they all stuck with me, thank God.
Okay, so that's the bit where it's like you're at the promo and you're like, oh well, that sounds pretty interesting, yeah, it's good, I'm glad that thing that I wanted to happen has happened. And then when you find out that the horse is going to make the race, is there another little surge of adrenaline going, oof, this is going to be interesting, because the guy who won it last year has laid a horse out for it this year, and I'm going to be on it?
Yeah, I suppose he's got some attachment to the race, with his father winning it, and him obviously Dermot winning it the year before, and he's unbelievable there, getting them staying chasers ready for them races, and especially they're sneaking into the race. I was going there obviously just delighted to be a part of it, to get a ride in a race with such history, and I said I'm going to soak every minute of it up. Win, lose or draw, whatever happens. And the whole build up to it all, obviously the crowd is there. I only live 5 miles down the road, so everyone's asking, are you in the race? Have you ride? And what's your chances? And you're just delighted to be a part of it. I didn't even want that. I didn't even want the build up to end. That kind of way. And I was just trying to soak that all in. But what happened then, just after 5 o'clock, was beyond my wildest dreams now, to be honest.
That's class.
Yeah, and it's just, I was looking, Paddy, as well. I was going through a few runners in the race there, and in terms of, there's been criticism of the fact that, one owner or one or two trainers can have a lot of runners in the race. And, I mean, whether you like it or not, that's the way the game is. I mean, if you pay your money, you have runners to race. But these are just 8 horses who ran in the race, fell, pulled up, brought down, fell, unseated rider, fell, unseated rider. They were all trained by Gordon Elliott. So he had 8 runners in the race, who didn't complete, and he had the second. And Dermot basically had Lord Lariat, and he had Free Will and Dylan last year, and he's managed to win both. The stats of this are just off the charts.
Yeah, that's the nature of the ups and downs of jumps racing. You just don't know what's going to happen, especially the boys, they only bought him for 5,500. Free Wheel and Dylan done as well. Sheila Mangan, she only works in the yard as well. So it's great for the small person, I suppose, to not even just partake in the race, but then to get the chance to lift that trophy. It's unbelievable.
I suppose, why was he a cheap horse? Because I remember he first came to my mind, I think, winning maybe a hurdle race in Tipperary, and he looked like a horse that would absolutely thrive over fences. But in those days, he was kind of ridden with a bit of confidence. He certainly wasn't ridden the way he was ridden on Monday, but he looked like a horse. I mean, I'm only going on TV here, but he looked like a horse that had a bit of size about him, and looked quite a good looking horse.
Yeah, we tried him a couple of times back at the end of last summer in Limerick, in Tipperary in a hurdle race as well, trying to take our time with him, scratching our head thinking, this horse works brilliant at home, he wasn't running desperate, but he wasn't running to what we thought he would be. And then one day we went to Fairyhouse with him then, in a opportunity handicap chase as well. And we said we'd just hop out and try and change tactics. And from the drop of flag, he just loved it. He was winging fences, jumping from fence to fence, taking me travelling away. He got caught then that day. He was only beaten half a length by Harry Khan. But that kind of set the ball rolling to say, look, this may be the key to him, and this is what he likes. He went on then, won the Ladies National then with Joanna Walton. And we went to Punchestown actually the New Year's Eve, on soft ground, carrying top weight. Still a bit worried that we didn't even think he'd go on that ground. All his form had been on nice ground, and he'd only just keep developing and getting stronger. He was able to get through the ground that day, and he's just gone from strength to strength. And it's as I suppose it's a testament to Dermot, making up his mind, deciding right, we'll change tactics, and then the team at home, having them spot on in the day. It's I arrive at the races and 98% of the job is done. It's a very small percentage of my job, and it's made a lot easier with everyone at home.
It's that's the thing as well. It's sliding doors moments like that dictate, because I know, Paddy, if you look, I tipped Enjoy Dallin in the race, was kind of held up, made a mistake at the second. Literally, you have no chance. You have no chance and you've 30 runners in the race, so not everyone can be handy. So it's obviously a race to get handy, and we saw that the last 2 years. But I guess the change of tactics kind of not only brought him into the race, but made him actually win the race as well.
Just explain the change of tactics, will you? What do you mean the change of tactics? And because you said he started to wing fences, and you say handy. What do you mean for the layperson listening? What does that mean?
He was ridden basically as Paddy was saying. He was ridden hold up ride really in his races. Travelled well. Didn't necessarily produce the form he was showing at home, but obviously Paddy, I don't know. It must be a massive advantage if you can get into a rhythm without any horses kind of bothering you particularly.
So you turn him into a front runner.
Turn him into a front runner, or just get out of trouble. And what was the start like, Paddy? Because I think there may have been one false start. There was obviously a rush to get prominent in a race like that.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, a big race. Big, most expensive handicap chasing in the country. There's a lot of pressure on. Lads are looking to try and get a good position, get a good start. I don't think you'll win your race at the start, but you can definitely lose it. And everyone's just shuffling, trying to get a position. And before the race, Dermot says he's very, very straightforward. He says, look, try and bounce out. If you can get to the front, great. He says, there's probably 20 other lads that want to get there as well. You know, so the laws of averages, there's only one of us that is going to get there. You know, I couldn't believe how easily he was able to get me up to the front and wing down over the first tree, and I was able to take him back. And I suppose not even a front runner, but I was delighted to have that bit of company upsides with Jack Kennedy in frontal assaults. You know, that he wasn't doing everything himself, you know, that kind of way, but still out of trouble at the same time.
How did that happen then at the start? Was it, I mean, did you have an idea that you said it was, you couldn't believe how straightforward it was? Were you left a bit to your own devices, or how did that work?
Yeah, I suppose, like, Dermot's instructions are very, very quick and short, you know. And he said, if you can get there, great. If you can't, you can't. Ride the race from there. And you know, I says he'll probably be on his head over the first tree. You know, everyone's looking to get there. Everyone, you know, all the pace is on. Even if he is a bit on his head, and I land in the first half a dozen, you know, we'll creep away and you know, have him going wherever he's comfortable. But you know, as I go back to it again, it's a testament to Dermot and the team having him primed and, you know, on top of his form, to be out the gates and fresh and well, you know, like a lad bouncing going out to play a game of football, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's such a long race. At what point do you start hoping to believe? You know, I mean, it's even jumping the last, you're probably still not sure. So when do you start thinking, oh, geez, I actually could be winning the Irish National here?
Yeah, I suppose you're as you're going through the race, you know, and you get a good jump out of them somewhere, and you get a bit of excitement, and you know, you're taking it back, trying to say just we'll get there. You know, but throughout the race, you've always got to have that bit of belief, thinking, geez, this could happen. But even he got a great jump at the last, and even from the back of that, you know, you're still thinking something might come out of the clouds and collar him and take that dream away, you know. So I was waiting to see that line.
That's like dream come true territory, particularly the fact you mentioned there that you know, you're living 5 minutes down the track from it. That's not your origin story though. You were born in Glasnevin, is that right?
Yeah, born in Glasnevin. I went to school in Drumcondra. I was in St. Pat's. Would have played football with Nafina in Drumcondra. I'd have ran for Clonliffe Harriers. I'd have actually been in the same class as Paddy Small as well. So I would have.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's plenty of good sports people in it now.
Who else would you have gone to school with, actually, of sporting note?
That's well, his brother as well would have been in the school as well. You know, plenty of good footballers. If you weren't playing for Ballymun Kickums, you were playing for Nafina as well, you know. So there's plenty of good lads, yeah.
So do you consider yourself a Dub or a Meath man?
You're tempting fate there now, Jeff.
No answer.
Yeah. This is like the Derry Girls one on. It's just going to get controversial here on the late.
I think it's possible to change, and you can grow out of things if you want. That's fine. Like Dublin constantly getting people moving in this instance somebody moving out and finding their true sporting prowess outside of Dublin. I think we can grandfather you into Meath, no problems.
Sure, look, I suppose they'll claim me anyway, whatever they want to say, you know.
You get a bit of a Meath accent, Paddy, I think.
Yeah, I suppose, look, I'm there long enough. I finished school in Drumcondra, and I was meant to go to primary school, in Drumcondra, and I was meant to go to St. Aidan's in Whitehall, and I didn't get there, didn't go in the end, and my mother said, we'll go to the school out near my father's farm, you know. Out in Ratoath, and sure, at the time, only 12 or 13, I thought this was miles away. I said, you couldn't do that to me, you know. But it did no harm in the end.
And who would you support in Leinster final between Meath and Dublin?
Oh, jeez, I suppose you'd have to support Meath, wouldn't you? Jeez, you'd have to say that.
There we go.
Well, that's the answer.
Underdog.
Ultimately, that is the answer. That's the decision has been made there. No problems. And so, not a traditional hotbed of horse racing, but it turns out your dad's farm, there was an interest there. Were there horses there? Was that your kind of first access to it?
Yeah, so my father's originally from Kerry, Ballylongford, North Kerry. and moved up to Dublin when he was young, and he always wanted to move back and have a place there with a bit of land and horses, so we'd have always been around. There was horses, ponies, my brother trained greyhounds, we were always at animals the whole time, and it was just something from a young age that I wanted to be. It was kind of a question of when, not if,
And so originally you were going to be a flat jockey. So how did that come about? You ended up going to England at some point.
Yeah, so I finished up. I stayed in school, finished through my schooling and done my leaving cert, and I rode my first winner actually while I was in sixth year. But then after school, I said I'd have a crack at England, see if I could have a go. I was getting tall, and it was inevitable. I says I want to try and make the most of it anyway. I wasn't there an awful long time until I broke my pelvis, and that set me back probably 3 or 4 months. And I was still growing and developing as a young lad, only 18, 19. And I came back probably a bit heavier. I was only over 9 stone at that stage, and I spent a few more months then. I was there over a year, so I was, but it was kind of a short-lived. It was never going to be the long term, with my body size and all that. But no, it was a good grounding.
Well,
so it was.
You sound fairly calm about that now, but like I suspect as an 18, 19-year-old, you're kind of willing your body to stop growing and to your bones to be a little bit less dense, because it sounds like it was your dream to be a flat jockey at that point. When we hear the stories of the footballers who go over to England and don't quite make it to the level that they want to, and they come back and they're disillusioned and they fall out of love with the game, and then they never go back playing football. For you, was there a period of that where you're like, I'm going to do something else now because I've had it?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say completely, I knew I wanted to work with horses anyway. When I finished up the flat, I says, I still love the game, you know what I mean? Whatever part of it I do end up in, I was always around breeding with my father and going to sales, so I knew I'd have my hand in it some way. But yeah, the dream growing up, would have been being a flat jockey. I'd have, I suppose, looked up to a lot of jump jockeys as well, but Richard Hughes would have been, God to me at the time.
He was tall as well.
Yeah, that would have been an aspect of it as well, a tall fella. But it was just taking a toll. And I came back after England, not with a clear-cut idea of what I wanted to do. I went into Dermot to start doing a bit in school, and then said, I'll see how I get on with this, and he says, for Jesus, have a crack at it, for a jump jockey I was light as well, and I was able to eat away, and I says, this is enjoyable. I can actually go racing, I can have something to eat, I can, I'm not driving all around the country eating nothing. There's a bit of a kick out of it that way for me anyway. Yeah,
it's not miserable.
No, you could have a bad day at the races and you could still go home and stick on a good decent dinner. You wouldn't be eating rubbish, but you could have a good hearty, good full meal, whereas riding on the flat, it just wasn't capable. You're doing light today and the next day it's the same again, and then you go and have a good dinner and you're playing catch up again, so it wasn't long term anyway.
It's what kind of sets racing apart, in that all these elite sports, your body is your temple, and it's so important what you eat, and in racing that just goes out the window for so many people. It's like so important not eating at all at times.
They're getting better at it though.
Yeah, they are, but it's a perennial problem. If you want to be a jockey and you're a little bit tall, and obviously Paddy was able to compensate by going over jumps, but it's a lot of them really do have to, like particularly flat jockeys who are a bit tall, like Richard Hughes, and Tony McCoy as well. Like, they just lived they were like monks the way they lived to be able to do their dream.
Paddy, from your perspective, the win at the weekend, does that change how you're thinking about your long-term career in the game? Is it a moment where you're like, actually, you know what, if I can do that now, and I know you're still claiming, so things will change when you ride out your claim and it'll be a bit more difficult for you, but at the same time, the experience you have to ride out your claim and the pathway you've taken to get there will mark you out for owners and trainers as going, okay, I'm going to give Paddy an opportunity here and see how he gets on. So does it change your career, do you think?
No, like look, it's always been the long term type of focus and dream for me. And going forward, like I'm only delighted to be here in Kilbeggan. Like, it's what I do, what I love, whether I'm, riding around in the Northern 95 or in one of the biggest races in the country. And I just want to keep improving and getting as many rides as I can. And I feel if I can do that, the more opportunities will come. But no, I don't think it changes a whole lot from my perspective. Hopefully, look, it might change. People might look at me and say, "Just we'll give him a bit more of a chance now after that." But no.
Well, you've a few quid in the bank anyway to tie you over for a while.
Cover the expenses anyway of the parties.
How were the parties actually?
There's been a few of them. We finished up there the other day. I was back here yesterday in Kilbeggan, so there's no race in the weekend. So we'll definitely do something then again.
See, the hangover though, when you wake up and the initial feeling is, oh God, but then the second feeling is, actually, hang on, I won the national. It's grand. I'll get through today.
Oh, definitely, it's worth every minute of it.
Yeah, the aforementioned Aisling seemed to. I think she caught you in the celebrations. I mean, you must have been like laden with well wishers from all corners of Ireland, pretty much.
Yeah, everyone. Like my father is from Kerry. We have relations all over the country. Everyone ringing, texting. I was even coming in on the horse in Fairy House. I was coming into Tina Turner, Simply the Best, and you'd nearly have to prize me down off the horse. I didn't want to get down at all.
Class.
It is amazing that in the build-up you were like, I'm going to soak this in, and that it didn't at any point become you weren't overawed by it, you weren't in any way intimidated by the fact. It was like, that's a mindset that a lot of people actually struggle with, where there's this big occasion, I'm going to be given this opportunity to do it, and you kind of talk yourself into, you're like a horse getting worked up in advance of it. For whatever reason, you were able to actually enjoy and take in what was happening. It's very unusual. When we talk to people like this, they don't really remember that much of, it's all a bit of a blur. For you, the celebrations are a blur, that's fair enough, but you do, it seems like, remember quite a bit from the week before and the race itself.
Yeah, no, everything's crystal clear, but as well, I suppose it's a lot easier to kind of keep that mindset when you've got good people there, obviously, like Pat, PJ, the owners, and Dermot. They're not overcomplicating things. They're not making it hard for you to think, I have to be there, I have to be in this position throughout the race. Very understanding. So it makes my job that bit easier again, and it just opens it up so that I can actually take it all in and probably perform at a level where I'm relaxed and I'm comfortable, same as I would be going to any other race meet around the country,
Yeah, and Dermot's interview afterwards was astounding, really, because it was almost like he'd seen a horse work well or something. He was so chilled out. I mean, for you go through the list of jockeys who never won the Irish National, and it's there are a lot of big names there. But for a trainer of, it's not like Dermot's not, he's a few horses, he's not a handful or whatever. But for a trainer to have won the Irish National 2 years in a row, racing meant too much to him. I couldn't get over how laid back it was. It obviously stands to him as a trainer with a game of so many ups and downs.
Yeah, I suppose, and it probably filters into his training as well with the horses. They're always given time, and they definitely wouldn't rush them. And they're, he'll let the horse tell him, when they're ready to run and what they need or what they don't need. And he's very understanding. If you come in and tell him about a horse, he'll have it sorted within the next couple of days or whatever we need to try something different with a horse, and he's just, it's probably what keeps him grounded and as well, and it rubs off, and it probably helps me as well, keep one man grounded anyway.
Yeah, well, you definitely seem pretty grounded by it. What's the plan now? Punchestown obviously next week. Have you many rides booked for that yet?
I'm not 100% fully sure now. Declaration Sunday now for for the first day on Tuesday. I have a great agent now, Ken Whelan as well. Works hard for me. And I'm the sort that have said will travel. Gets me up and down the country. In and out of different trainers. So we'll just play it by ear now and see.
How is Ken keeping?
Great. Wouldn't be bothering him. He was actually driving the Jeep, so he was alongside us on Monday, and I spotted him then when I was pulling up, and I nearly jumped off the horse into the Jeep too.
He was driving the Jeep. What's the role of that Jeep actually?
That's carrying the camera.
Okay, yeah. So Ken, Ken was the quintessential, and he won't mind me saying this, there's never been a journeyman jockey more than Ken Whelan, because he rode so many horses who were 100 to 1, 150 to 1, whatever it was. A lot of horses going in to get their handicap marks and so on. And Ken was, Ken Ford's a good career. And I remember saying to him, if I wanted to write a book on a jockey, I'd much prefer to write about you than Ruby Walsh or one of the champions. And then Ken went from being a jockey to a jockey's agent, did the parade ring in Tipperary, and with his own intimate I can't even say the word anymore, an inimitable style, and now he is driving the camera around the track. He is some man.
Yeah, no, he's great. You could even, you could ride a horse and I could get on the phone to him heading home from the races, and I could be talking to him for 20 minutes, half an hour. We could talk from horse racing to golf, to the web. You could talk to him about that. And he's very understanding. He's very, when you chat to him, he's very real. You know what I mean? There's nothing hidden in behind it or anything, and he tell you straight how it is. Which helps, he'd tell you if you've done a good job or if you went the other way, How
many jockeys would he have now?
Oh, he'd have over 10, 15 probably anyway, yeah.
Yeah, because we had Gary Cribben on. I was talking to Darragh O'Keefe during the week. Gary was of course, famously was running the Boston Marathon, basically collapsed with hypothermia, was brought to hospital, discharged himself and finished the marathon. These agents are a bit different.
Yeah, they're mad in their own way, but Ken, he's out playing hurling and also he is out golfing, out driving the Jeep at the races, doing a bit of work in Tipperary, and he's some man for one man, in fairness.
Well, you got to keep busy. That's it's all about the hustle. Paddy, congratulations! It's an incredible story. It's a human version of Secretariat. Thanks a million, and keep it up.
Brilliant, thanks lad, thanks for being on.
Paddy O'Hanlon there, the jockey aboard Lord Lariat, as Lord Lariat came home with 40 to 1 starting price, as we said earlier, tipped by Aisling O'Reilly at our road show, or certainly backed anyway. It's an incredible story. That's the national, if Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott wins it, you kind of expect it, and it's like, okay, that's to be expected. But when you have those back-to-back years, and unfortunately last year there was no crowd to see it, this year that's a local hero coming home, where the whole community in the whole build-up are like, do you have a chance, are you on board something? And then he comes home and it's like,
got a good reception as well. I was looking, in fairness to racing, you can get a bit despondent about sport at the top level, because it's just so money driven, and effectively the team with the most money will win, and it's hard for smaller teams to compete and so on and so forth. But we had John McConnell on recently, and he was on about buying a case of you, and he was saying, I think he spent $1,000 on him or something as a foal, and obviously he's gone on to whatever. I was looking up a case of you's sire Hot Streak. I was looking up his record during the week. A case of you was honoured in a race at Bellewstown, because that's where he began his career, I think. Hot Streak as a stallion, he hasn't had one horse of any particular note whatsoever, nothing apart from a case of you, who's one of the best sprinters in the world. It doesn't make any sense. And you get these Black Swan events to win the Grand National 2 years in a row and it's so concentrated at the top level now in terms of the big owners and the big yards. It really is so unlikely. It's 150 to 1, so that's effectively a 200 to 1 shot. 200 to 1, 200 multiplied by 50, so you're talking about it's a 10,000 to 1 chance basically, and he did it. And I just think, we haven't spoken to Paddy before, but That's what sport's about. He's just a brilliantly positive guy, and he celebrated as well. And he said, like, I'm not going to mind telling you, I had a few celebrations. And he's going to Kilbeggan. He's outside Kilbeggan now, and Kilbeggan is just as much to him as Fairyhouse. And they're the stories that Jumps Racing is about, I think.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. You can text the show 53106 this evening, or of course you can tweet us at Off The Ball. Friday Night Racing is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. We're going to talk Punchestown next.
Friday Night Racing
On Off The Ball.
brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Friday Night Racing
On Off The Ball.
brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
Okay, Friday Night Racing on Off The Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. We should turn our attention to the fact that Punchestown is going to be wild and wonderful. I know a lot of people have really missed Punchestown on their social calendar, on their sporting calendar, and if the weather is as good next week as it is this week, it is glorious.
Yeah, I've been the lads from Future Ticketing. I don't mind giving them a plug. They're buzzing with all the League of Ireland at the moment, because like the League of Ireland, if you're involved in sales for the League of Ireland and all that, Liam Holton was just telling me the League of Ireland sales are just off the charts. But this is a winded way of telling me they've invited Dan and I, because they sponsor a podcast for us, to a jolly on Thursday. But, the good man Michael here has asked me to work on Friday here and do a long shift and come in early. I just can't do it anymore, Ger. What am I going to do?
You're too old. You're going to show up for work.
I can't do a Paddy O'Hanlon. I can't burn the candle both ends. But I mean, everyone loves to go to Punchestown. It's just great crack. They've changed the fixture in recent years to being more of like a matinee meet to allow people to come in for a later start. And as much as we're not going to get the Honeysuckle Constitution Hill clash that maybe we all pined for, it's going to be some great racing, and conclude a very interesting year in the jumps front. You've some great stories. Obviously I think the Fairyhouse Grand National winner was great for the smaller names in the game. Willie Mullins breaking records at Cheltenham, Gordon Elliott trying to come back, Rachel Blackmore having a great year. There's obviously some stars on show at Punchestown for sure.
Yeah, so the National Hunt champions will all be crowned on Saturday as well. We know that it's going to be Willie Mullins, champion trainer, Paul Townend, champion jockey, Patrick Mullins, champion amateur, and Jodie Townend, champion female amateur. The champion conditional is still tight between Jack Foley and Shane Fitzgerald. The specific stuff for the people who are actually interested in the racing, as opposed to all of the other stuff that will happen. And
in fairness now, a lot of people who go to Punchestown probably couldn't tell you the name of two horses, and that's what we need at race meetings. We need all sorts of characters.
You need the mix.
The good and the bad of everyone, and have a good time. But obviously Honor Jameen versus Shack and Poursois. Probably on the Tuesday, the stablemates Dice Dynamo and Sir Gerhard could run against each other then in the novice hurdle. Bob Bollinger and Capodanno, that's an interesting clash in the novice chase, because Bob Bollinger to me didn't run his race at all at Cheltenham behind Gallopin Deschamps, who won at Fairyhouse. Punchestown Gold Cup, Allaho could take on Clan des Oboe. And then we have the likes of Facile Vega and American Mike possibly clashing again in the bumper. What a race that would be. The Stayers Hurdle, we obviously have Classical Dream and Sorry to Burley. I don't think Gavin Cromwell's horse is going to run. He ran at Aintree. Florent Porter. Then you have the likes of Vauban and Fieldor, obviously the Triumph Hurdle protagonists, Epatante coming over, so on and so forth. Yeah, so proper names.
Yeah, Paul Nichols is coming over as well and bringing a decent slew of horses too, which is good to see.
Yeah, definitely. And like he, I think we saw this year, Paul Nichols kind of was sidestepping Cheltenham with some of his horses, because he was like, their entry's a more realistic target, and go to Punchestown as well. Interested to see what the ground is like. I don't know what the weather conditions, I don't know what the weather's forecast the weekend, but it has been obviously drying out a good bit, and that was interesting at Cheltenham, because on the Wednesday it was essentially overwatered. It was interesting to hear Ruby Walsh saying ahead of Fairy House that like he'd never really give out to a groundsman in jumps racing for overwatering, because he said if it just doesn't rain and you don't water, that's a far worse scenario than it being heavy when it should be soft. Basically, is what he was saying. I'm paraphrasing him, but hopefully things go well on the ground front for them. And I mean, to have people back racing again at a proper Irish festival, I think I know a lot of people around Kildare who wouldn't necessarily be into racing but love Punchestown, got the week off for it, or got a day off when they were at school, and it's a proper part of the local community.
Yeah, five days of top quality racing, so we'll obviously be talking about it across the week, and as the declarations happen day on day, we'll get to know exactly who's going up against who, so there's plenty of different bits and pieces to look forward to there. Anything specific?
Jumps concludes tomorrow in Britain at Sandown as well, and Nubia Negra will be running there in the big race, the 2 mile chase. Obviously you'd kind of maybe have expected the likes of Shishkin to be there, but there's a good card at Sandown. And in Ireland then, I've only looked at Limerick tomorrow so far. Limerick's a really nice flat card, we're tipping on nicely into the flat now. You see Aidan O'Brien unveiling a brother to Batash at Tipperary yesterday, with Ryan Moore riding, and that sort of thing gets you going for the season ahead, winning as well. So it's like a nice seamless transition to the flat action with all the classics to come.
I did notice it. And would Ryan Moore be over a good bit?
I'm just wondering, I mean, in terms of what's he must be he's basically riding whenever Aidan has good horses or have any description now. So like, I don't know, I presume he's not based over here, but he's over here a hell of a lot. Yeah, like he's going to, obviously he's riding Batash's brother, but it's still Tipperary on a Thursday and he's over here. Yeah, so he's putting in the miles, but it could be obviously going to be a big year for Aidan O'Brien, massive classic contender, isn't it?
They do that because they think later down the road in the big races, we want you to know this horse.
Yeah, and exactly, yeah, but he just seems to be riding he's riding at pretty much every proper meet now, and I think it's just that he doesn't have as much. Basically, Aidan O'Brien's jockey now, and that's how it is, and that's it over everything else.
Well, I suppose they could put anybody on their good horses at this stage of the season, before, but actually building the rapport seems to be important to them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're riding a brother to Batash, absolutely, he could be going to the Coventry or whatever Royal Ascot. Great to see though, and the standard of the flat in Ireland at the moment. I mean, you can bemoan the fact that you've these dominant trainers, or you can, if you can't beat them, join them. Look at Paddy Toomey and Ger Lyons, their strike rates, and what Jessica Harrington has been doing on the flat. Serious quality of flat action in Ireland, and Aidan, Joseph, and even Dunick O'Brien, like, just aspiring to be the best, and the standard is sensational at the moment. Galileo is no longer with us, so that'll change the dynamics in terms of the breeding down the line, and you're looking for that kind of big stallion, and Wootton Bassett's horses will be coming to the fore now soon in Ballydoyle, but fascinating times.
Alright. Despite a late rally from Danny Mullins, Johnny Ward emerges as the clear winner of this year's Tote 10 to Follow competition with a points total of 657.77.
That was narrow in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very narrow. 9-point win. Johnny led the competition from the very beginning, nearly coughed it all up, staying in the top spot every single week. To mark his achievement, Tote will donate $5,000 to the Irish Injured Jockeys Fund on your behalf.
What?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I'm glad you don't read the emails though that was in, but obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you get between WhatsApp, various other like Twitter DMs, Instagram, email. It's very, very hard to keep on top of everything, isn't it? Though, like you admitted there that you'd lost an email that was sent this morning, went into your spam, you didn't even know the difference. It's especially if you're in all these groups, like you just start.
You're overwhelmed.
Out, like,
but in the meantime,
and if you get an email that has BCCs or CCs,
focus on the lead here. $5,000 for the Irish Injured Jockeys Fund.
So. What's the difference in me winning this and Danny Mullins, in that both of us would have been given $5,000 in jockeys?
I don't know.
Does it make any difference whatsoever? Like, can I say,
you won,
I want to give the $5,000 to like a particular charity case, or like, does it matter?
I mean,
or can I?
Ultimately, you're claiming the credit.
Yeah, hopefully, $5,000 to a good cause is all good.
Next week's Punchestown Festival will be the first at which the Tote guarantee is available to racegoers. Tote will be the official betting partners at the festival on Saturday, and will also sponsor the Tote Always SP or Better Handicap Hurdle. Right. Friday Night Racing Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Have a ball at Punchestown next week.
And I hope in the call, I think he's having his going away drinks tonight. Sure, a lot of good characters from here will be there. Best of luck in your future endeavours as well, which I believe is taking a camper van around Europe, something to that effect.
He'll be back.
He'll be back. He will. They
So
always
we-
come back.
Next week. See you then.
Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.